If, like me, you're recording your talking head videos one line at a time, this tutorial will show you how to tidy that up and create something reasonably compelling with very little effort. I'm Matt Stevenson, and this is CreatorNoobToPro. Today's lesson is the simplest possible edit you could make to just give your final video a little bit of polish. So to begin with, I've done a bit of prep in advance of this tutorial, and that stuff is something I'll cover in a different video, that preparation. But right now over here, what you can see is I've created a CreatorNoobToPro folder where I'm going to keep all of these videos. And for this particular tutorial, I've created a subfolder. And in there, I've already put the assets I'm going to need for this tutorial. In here, I've got some video footage from camera 1 where I've just done a short piece to camera, which is filled with outtakes. I've got a voice track. And I've got a few graphical things. I've got a couple of versions of the CreatorNoobToPro logo in there. I've got a film burn transitions if I need to hide any difficult cuts. And then I've got an end plate, which I'll just put at the end of the video. So those are the assets I'm going to use. And the first thing I'm going to do now when I open Premiere Pro is I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to put it in that folder and I'm going to call it Basic Edit Tutorial. Create that project, switch to the edit view where we can see a number of elements. This is where the preview of the project is going to be. And then over on the left, you can see it says add your media. We haven't yet got any media in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring all of those assets that I've just shown you into this project. And I just do that by navigating to the folder, selecting them all and doing open, and it puts them all over here. Now, we've got all of our assets here and it's time to start putting some things onto the timeline. So if I scroll down here and look for the video called camera 1, that's our main video footage, and I drop that into the timeline, and there you go. You can see that I've brought that in, and if I was to scrub back and forwards there, you can see that. I'm also going to bring in my voice track. I prefer to work with a separate audio track. It just adds a couple of steps at this point of the edit. The first is the need to synchronize the audio track that I've recorded separately with the audio track and the video track the main footage, because if you look closely here you can see they're just slightly out of sync. That's the same audio bit there and there. So the first thing I do then is I can select the video and audio combined track and my separate audio track here. If I do a right click for a context menu, I can see this synchronize option here. Click on that and I'm going to synchronize the audio track channels on both of those videos. And what you'll see then is just this video track is just shifted along ever so slightly and all of those audio things are synchronized. So having done that synchronization, the thing I'm going to do now is remove and get rid of the audio track associated with the video. So when I click on this video here, you can see these two bits are highlighted, so I can do a right click again for a context menu and I can see unlink here as an option. I click on unlink and those two things now, as you'll see, are two separate timelines. So I'm going to delete the audio track and I'm going to move that track up. And then if I select both of those, do a right click, I can now link those. And so those two are now linked forevermore. And any edits that I make to either one of those timelines will also be made to the one next to it. The first thing I then do as well is I'll just get my little marker here to the start of my footage. And I can tell that this is the start of the footage because it's got no audio at all on this part of the timeline here. And it starts there. So just to tidy things up nicely, I'll make a cut here and I'll talk about those tools in a moment and I'll pull that up to the front. So that's us now ready to do our basic trimming. So the next thing I do in my workflow is to lose all of the outtakes and the mistakes from this footage. So the first thing we do is we play from the start of the video to find out whether this first bit is something we want to keep. So that's not great, but you can see that that first bit there I want to lose. This bit here I want to lose because I had two failed attempts at that first line. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the cutting tool, the razor tool, and the hotkey for that on a Windows keyboard is letter C. So if I press C, you can see the changes to a little razor blade logo here, or razor blade icon rather, and I can just do a little cut there. If I switch back with the V to my select tool, you can see, I'll move that line out of the way, there's a little line here indicating that I've made a cut. I can now select that and press delete, and then that bit's gone. But I want to move all of my footage across to the left to fill that gap. So if I just select that gap, right click, I get this option to ripple delete, and that's going to pull everything across to fill that gap. So now what I've also done then is I've listened to that first bit again and realized that isn't actually my final take. So now I'm going to move the pointer along to the next block here and do another cut, delete that, ripple delete there, and have a listen to this one. I'd then carry on through the rest of the video, removing the rest of the mistakes and the outtakes until I'm left with a shorter piece of video footage that only includes those things that I want to keep in my video. Okay, so I'm happy with that basic trim of my raw footage down to a reasonably coherent short video. And the next thing I'm going to do is apply some basic transitions just to hide some of the less neat cuts. My personal style is I don't mind people saying that I'm doing a multi-edit video because it works for me. But if I was going to hide some of these, what I would do is I'll position my pointer here, and I would say this film burn transition video here is something I could use. I've zoomed in a little bit here so I can see my transition points a little bit more clearly. And if I wanted to put a transition over that to hide a messy cut, I position my pointer here and I would drag in this little film burn movie to make sure it's straddling that. And what we can see there at the moment is that that completely obliterates the video and you hide the cut completely, but it doesn't look particularly nice or cinematic. So what I'm going to do instead is select that clip and I go to my effect controls up here where I can see things around where it's positioned, its scale and so on. But the important point for me down here around opacity is the blend mode. And we get a load of choices. I'm not going to talk about what all of these are because I've learned that basically for the sorts of things I want to do, if I choose screen, it makes it semi-transparent. And now if we watch that, that completely hides that cut. I use it sparingly because to do it on every single cut just becomes a bit of overkill, which is why I've chosen to leave less difficult cuts without any transition at all. Another technique you can use to hide cuts is to use a zoom for emphasis. So if I was to go along to one of these later, shorter sections, short one here, if I wanted to hide this cut and this cut, I could just, for emphasis, move to scale here and scaling that with a zoom. And then if I go back to here and play that, so that zoom in, if that was a piece of track where I wanted a little bit of emphasis, the zoom in and the zoom out hides two cuts really nicely. So the consequence of all of that is you end up with an edit where you've got some of your cuts hidden by transition. You've got some of your cuts which are not messy cuts, and not hidden by anything because you can barely notice and it's not distracting. And you can get some of your cuts hidden by zoom for emphasis. And usually on a short video, those three techniques and maybe a second camera from time to time are enough to hide the cuts and make it look a little bit more professional. Now I'll talk a little bit about motion graphics. Most pieces of software have got some built in, but if we're to look over here at this right hand panel and I click on graphics templates, we can see down here a load of templates that are pre-built in Premiere Pro that I could choose to use. And arbitrarily in this transition, I'm just going to pick one and I'm going to use it over another cut because it is another technique for hiding a cut as well as using it for a bit of branding. So I'm going to pull this transition onto my timeline here over that cut. And what we can see is this one is smaller than my resolution. So I'm just going to make that the size of my screen. And if I'm to play that one now, you can see that transition. I can adjust the properties of that a little bit if I want to. I can change some of the colors, and that can be used to hide another cut or to introduce some brand into your video. The next thing I might do for my video is to put a title card on it or a title overlay. So I go back to the start of my footage, I find the point at which I'd like to put some titles. So I'll go back to my graphics templates here and I'll find one that says this is a title, and I'm going to pull that onto my timeline. That one is there. It's longer than I want it to be, so I'm going to shorten that a little bit. So I've dropped that title onto here. I can double click in it and I can see that the title text is, this is the title, and I can change that just to be title of our video, which is basic editing tips or something like that. I can see the text doesn't fit in the box, so I'm going to select that and I'm going to make that wider to the full width of there. And now we can see how to play that video, that the title appears, and then the title at the end of it will also then disappear. There's a number of inbuilt title options. You can also just introduce plain text and put some basic transitions on those as well. And then just to finish off the video, two additional little things to drop on. The first is I'm going to introduce a logo there for a bit of a watermark or branding element. So I've got a number of different versions, so we'll pull this one over and see what we think of that one. I wanted to run across the whole video, so I dropped it in here and then I stretched that out to go right to the end of my timeline. It's too big and it's too bold, and it's too in the middle there, so I just select it, move it up to the top, make it a little bit smaller, move it right into the corner there. And it's also a little bit too bright and in your face, so I'm just going to look at the effects panel for this little item up here, and I can see opacity there, and I'll just drop that down a little bit just to make it a bit more of a watermark. And then finally, while I'm just here at the end of my video, I'm going to drop in an end plate, which is a little, I'll put it actually at the end of there. And so if we just look at the end of the video there now, you'll see that we get into that, and that just plays for a little while so you can see the YouTube channel advert. So those are all the video elements of your first piece of content covered. The last thing I'll just talk about here is that I think it's sometimes quite nice to have an underlying audio track, a music track. And I subscribe to a service called Upbeat, but there's loads of different places you can go to get free and royalty-free music. So I just have a look. They've got all sorts of categories on here. It's a pretty good service. There's a category down here called background vibe. So for this video, I'm going to look at something maybe a little bit light-hearted. And the thing about this is they've all got their durations here, and I want to find something that reasonably closely matches the duration of my video. So I'll just go and have a look. I can see here my video is 46 seconds long. So I will now set the vocals to be instrumental only, because I don't want lyrics over the top of my spoken narrative. Duration, I'll drop that down to in 30-second increments, so I'll look for stuff between 30 seconds and 1 minute, because my 46 seconds will sit firmly in there. And then I have a look down the side here and I just find something which is round about the right length, or 46 seconds there. Let's see what that sounds like. Not sure about that one. Another one here. You know, well, that's probably good enough for what I need. With an underlying thing, so I just download that. Drag that into my assets there in the project. And pull it across onto the timeline. If I go back there, I'm going to put this as a brand new audio track underneath there. Now, to begin with, that's going to be too loud. So I'll select this one, go into this, and then I'll adjust the decibels. Now, my voice track is at 0 decibels, so this needs to be a negative number. And I found through trial and error that somewhere around about 28, minus 28 decibels is about right. And that's it. That's our basic video edited. 45 seconds, 46 seconds long, from about 1.5 minutes of footage. So I've lost, about half of the footage, a few graphical elements and musical elements to give us a reasonably good finished product, which we can now export. We see over here export, and we get a new export panel. I'm going to choose the folder to export to, and I want it to be the same one that my project is in. It's basic editing tutorial over here. And I'm going to call it basic editing tutorial output, just so I can differentiate from anything else I might have. Save that. H.264 format apparently is the best one for YouTube, I've been led to believe. I'm doing 30 frames per second. Basically, all of the settings are pretty much as they were, I think, when I first started doing this. I haven't changed very much at all, other than the fact that I have made sure it's doing it to the right resolution. which is the resolution I've recorded at. That's for 4K resolution. And we export it, and then it doesn't take very long at all. That's only a 46-second video. So as you can see there, it's already halfway through, rattling through there. And before you know it, that video is finished. And it tells us down here it's exported successfully to this folder and this file name. And if I was to go and look in that folder, I would find that there. And that's it. That's it. First video done. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, found it useful, and you're on the same journey as me to try and learn to be better at video content creation, subscribe to the channel and follow me along.